Hello, everyone. Welcome to my new series where I explain Warrior Cats. Um, the first story series, The Prophecy Begins, and basically I'll be explaining the first three books very poorly. This might be a new series, so without further ado, what we'll do first is I'm going to explain some background knowledge of what you need to know before we get into it, like who are the main people to watch in this story and other things like that. So without further ado, let's begin with the story. Well, this is the StarClan logo, and StarClan is basically cat heaven for these warriors. And if you do good deeds as a warrior, you go here and you could talk with all your friends. StarClan sometimes talks to cats and explain what could happen in the future. They could see the future a little bit, but don't know entirely what's going to happen. And they could see omens like a dead bird or an owl, which means usually a death. And yeah, basically, to sum it up, it's basically cat heaven, and medicine cats speak to them. They're basically like the preachers. This is Blue Star. She is the leader of ThunderClan, one of the 4 clans of warrior cats. So she gets 9 lives. She gets down to her last life in this series, but a very important character to watch. Very kind and very important in these 3 set of books. And yeah, that's all I have to say about her. This is Tiger Star, Tiger Claw, but right now it's Tiger Claw. He is basically the main villain for most of this story. We'll get into his deeds and the former deputy of ThunderClan. Deputies are next in line to become leader. We'll get to what happens to him very shortly. He's also a very important character and drives a lot of the plot. And yeah, he's the one to watch out for when you read this. He is very smart in the way he treats Fireheart to make it look like he treats him no differently than anyone else. Very smart. Yeah, that's what I have to say. He's very smart about when he decides to move. This is the main character, Fireheart, or Firepaw, or Rusty, depending on how far you get into the books. He is eventually going to become leader when we review the other books, but right now he is currently just a warrior, not a deputy, not actually he is the deputy currently where I am reading up to. He is smart and very loyal to ThunderClan despite not being clan born, which is very important to these cats for some reason. Like, they'll treat you differently just because you're not born in the forest like they were. This is Graystripe or Graypaw when you begin the story. He is currently a River Clan cat because he left ThunderClan. You can do that, but it's extremely rare from what I could tell until later on in the books. He is the best friend of Fireheart. They argue some in the book. Basically, his whole character is a love idiot. So the first book, Into the Wild, begins with Rusty meeting Blue Star and Graystripe in his kitty pet home as Rusty. Rusty is a kitty pet. Kitty pets are basically house cats. And basically, it's an insult to be called that. So if I called you a kitty pet, it would be insulting. Warriors are this big, strong things, and they basically invite Rusty to join them, which he does and becomes Firepaw. Firepaw doesn't have a mentor. He is an apprentice, which is 6 moons old, which would basically be like 6 months old. And basically, he does what you would expect, normal everyday things like hunting for mice. He's very good at that. Eventually, Bluestar placed so much trust in him. She allows him to go to Mothermouth, which is where you speak to StarClan. The leaders speak to StarClan. I forgot for exactly what reason. They end up meeting Barley, and Barley is he's a rogue. He's not exactly owned by anyone, and Bluestar loses one of her lives, which she revealed to Firepaw that this was actually, she said she lost her 5th life. It was actually her 7th life, and that is where eventually, as I said, these clans, there's 4 clans. Shadow Clan interrupts and basically kills an important character that I forgot to mention. Tiger Claw, at the very beginning of the book, in the epilogue, basically, prologue, he killed the former deputy, which is very much frowned upon in the warrior code, which is the rules warriors have to follow, because you should never kill a fellow warrior. It's just like common sense. And he kills the deputy Redtail and says he killed Oakheart, which is a River Clan warrior, for basically attacking and killing Redtail. And we find out Tiger Claw does that, but not yet. Firepaw meets Yellowfang, an old medicine cat who is blamed for killing kits, becomes friends with her, takes care of her, because Bluestar says, yep, you're allowed to join the clan. Basically, then they go to a gathering. Ravenpaw talks a little too much, revealing what happens to Tiger Claw, what Tiger Claw actually did. Tiger Claw doesn't like that and is planning to kill Ravenpaw and exile him from the clan. And basically, what happens after that is, basically, no one trusts Ravenpaw, and they decide to help him leave because they have to go to, but only as far as a certain path. And eventually, they find out that Yellowfang might have killed Kits, and they eventually throw out the old leader, Crooked Star. Not Crooked Star, Broken Star. And they overthrow him, and Nightpelt is going to go to become leader. And ultimately, because of their good deeds and with Yellowfang's help, they bring back the kits that were stolen, but at a loss. Lionheart was made deputy after Redtail's death. He died, and the old medicine cat died, Spotted Leaf, who Fireheart had a crush on. There's a few other characters who don't do much. I'm just summarizing the main important stuff that happened, and basically, what happened was him and Graystripe very close here, Graypaw very close here, and they get their warrior names. Warriors get different names. Their warriors' names are Fireheart and Graystripe. Graystripe and Fireheart become warriors, and they have to sit on the vigil while everyone is sleeping. So basically, to catch up to speed, I said I'm going to explain this as poorly as possible, so if you want to read and find out more, you can find out more. But basically, that about sums it up. That's all the important stuff that happens in this part of the story. Key notes to know from now on: monsters. Here's some knowledge you must know to be warriors. Monsters are cars. Two legs are humans. Medicine cats can't have kids. No babies. The warrior code is rules that all warriors must follow. And this is what this establishes. And pretty much, yeah. This also starts off where Fire Paul wants to tell Blue Star what Tiger Star is doing, what Tiger Claw is doing, but doesn't really want to at the same time because he's afraid. Fireheart is afraid that Blue Star won't believe him, which kind of does happen. We'll get to that. So they sit on vigil, so on and so forth. And another thing to know is white cough, blue is a disease, green cough is a disease. I think it was her 7th wife, Blue Star, which I forgot to mention in the story, but yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for this book. So Fire and Ice begins where we left off. So basically, Fireheart and Graystrap wake up for their vigil and take a little nap. In this event, they go to a gathering which all 4 clans meet in peace, except only 3 clans showed up because Broken Star tried to take over Wind Clan's territory and threw them out. So basically, Blue Star's like, no, we need to get them. Nightpelt and Crooked Star are like, nah, we don't need them. We don't need them. We don't need them. We need more food. We need food. Forget about the cats that used to live in this place. This is ours. We want to split it. Basically, is what happened. And Blue Star's like, nah, I think I'm going to send Fireheart and Graystripe to go on a mission, which basically happens. And Graystripe and Firestar go on this mission to get Wind Clan back, which they do succeed. And they figure out Ravenpaw is still alive. Yeah. They stay in Barley's Nest for a little bit, take them back to camp. Tallstar and his people back to camp, and ultimately are given the thumbs up to do whatever they want with the territory. They're basically become allies. WindClan and ThunderClan become allies for a little bit. They decide to go into RiverClan territory because it's easier to get back to the clan headquarters, and they fight near a ravine. Sandpaw and Tiger Claw are there, and they basically fight a little bit, and Graystripe accidentally kills a RiverClan warrior, which their mentor Lipperstar, the she-cat, didn't really like, and basically became enemies with both clans, and very, very, terrible situation there. And then from there, Fireheart and Graystripe get apprentices. Fireheart gets Cinderpaw, and Graystripe gets Brackenpaw. They're brothers and sister. So they're brother and sister. Cinderpelt is the girl. It's not Cinderpelt, Cinderpaw, and Brackenfur is the boy. So, basically, what happens is, eventually, they go back hunting, and Graystripe falls into water. Fireheart just stood there doing jack, and essentially, a female RiverClan leader comes, and this is what I mean, idiot love. He falls in love with an opposite clan warrior, and that's all he thinks about. He basically neglects his mentor by not taking care of him at all, focusing on the female cat Silverstream, and that's basically because his main character, Fireheart, and him fight through the whole thing, and Fireheart secretly goes to meet his sister every once in a while, Princess, which she eventually gives him her baby, Cloudkit. Cloudkit becomes very important later on, but essentially, after that whole fiasco, all that fiasco, I forgot to mention at the very beginning, Fireheart actually tells Bluestar what Tigerclaw did, and she just like, oh, Ravenpaw is fine telling stories. And then basically what happens is WindClan gets attacked by RiverClan and ShadowClan with now leader Night Star, because Nightpelt finally became a star. And then they fight. And before they figure that out, Tigerclaw actually wanted Bluestar to come scent a smell. His plan was to probably try to get her run over by a monster, aka a car, but it ended up basically crippling Cinderpaw, and she would never become a warrior. And Yellowfang's like, yeah, she might live, she might die, 50-50. And Bluestar dies of white cough. She gets back to life, of course, because she has 9 lives. Tell Fireheart this is her 8th life, so forth and so forth. And basically, near the end, they have a whole war between these two clans, and Fireheart and Graystripe become best friends again because he refuses to kill Silverstream, which in the war that those cats had, not many lives were really lost in this one, so nothing too interesting to note. But basically, this plants the seeds for how it happens next. And then after that, basically what happens is nothing. That's where it ends. And they win. ThunderClan and WindClan win. They're allies, best buddies. And I forgot to mention that Brokenstar attacks. Yellowfang blinds him, and he's just a shell of his former self, and now called Broken Tail. And we find out that Yellowfang had a kit in ShadowClan, which is not allowed. Menacing cats cannot have babies. That's one of the biggest rules. Yeah, pretty much that's where it ends. Good. The next book and the last book we're talking about today is Warriors Forest of Secrets. Basically, this begins a few days after we left off, and I'm going to say from the very beginning, Tiger Claw is the very biggest instigator in the history of instigation here. Every time Fireheart does anything a little bit wrong, so how would Blue Star like to hear about this? Her former apprentice causing trouble. Basically, he's the biggest instigator in this. He's like, Fireheart did something wrong. Let me raise my hand. Yo, teacher! Yo, teacher! It had that energy. It had, yo, teacher! Fireheart did something wrong, like a tattletale little kid. But the first sign of it is because, so you spared Silverstream, and I knew it. Basically, he's telling every clan not to trust Fireheart, and Blue Star even, at one point, starts to wonder if he's loyal to the clan or not. So Graystripe, because he wants to see Silverstream, reluctantly agrees to go find Ravenpaw and ask questions about what Tigerclaw did to murder Redtail, who wasn't even a character in the book for that long. So basically, or at all, he wasn't really any importance in this. So basically, all he asked, Ravenpaw told his story again, this time changed it up a little bit, said that Oakheart died with the rock, said no ThunderClan cat would touch Stonefur, which is important. So Ravenpaw and not Ravenpaw, Graystripe and Firepaw decide, let's go to RiverClan. We have it in because you're singing Silverstream, and I know it. It's a secret. So they get down there, and basically, Fireheart asks Silverstream, do you know what this means? Were you at the fight? No, but I know someone who was. So she brought out Mistyfoot, who's the sister of Stonefur, who's a guy. So basically, Stonefur's like, we were there. She confirmed Ravenpaw's story and was like, yeah, Oakheart was indeed, in fact, a fact crushed by that rock, and could confirm that much. So then he asked, what do you mean by no cat should touch Stonefur? And Silverstream and Mistyfoot agreed to bring back some queen, I believe her name was Goldenflower, and what happened was they left camp to see them in RiverClan territory. RiverClan territory, and basically Goldenflower tells them Stonefur and Stonefur and Mistyfoot are ThunderClan born cats, and she raised them. We find out later that those are Oakheart and Blue Star's children. They decided to go to Silverstream, but basically after that, Graystripe is so happy. Silverstream is going to have kits. Guess how long that excitement lasts for? Not very long, but we'll get there when we get there. Cloud Kit goes on a few adventures here and there. Oh wait, I forgot the best part. They are introduced to Crooked Star once they save a group of kits from drowning because it was flooded, and basically what happens is they save the kits, go to Crooked Star, say, hey, we'll help you get food because there's no fish in your water and you need help. Yeah, the instigator finds out and was like, what an opportunity to get Fireheart in trouble, and jumps on it, of course. And it's like, and Blue Star's like, I had to punish you for this. But before all of that, Fireheart does tell Blue Star what actually happened between Fireheart and the Queen. She gets very offended because she gets very offended. That's all I'm going to say, because he mentioned Stonefur and Mistyfoot. And then eventually, they all meet again because Silverstream is having a baby. The babies, and Cinderpelt, who now works under Yellowfang, tries to save Silverstream. She dies. Nothing she could do. She is devastated by this. Completely devastated, and thinks she has no right being a missing cat. And that happens, and then after that, Tiger Claw sends rogues, and the other clans are very upset because at the gathering, they figure out that they tell Broken Tail, and eventually Broken Tail and Tiger Claw send rogues in to attack ThunderClan camp, so Tiger Claw could become leader. And yeah, that doesn't end up too well because Fireheart is there to save the day. Eventually, with the help from River Clan, who just came to take Blue Star's kit, not Blue Star, Gray Stripe's kits, because they think they should belong with River Clan, only for Gray Stripe to join River Clan, because he wants to be with the kits because they remind him of Silverstream. And that's basically where it ends. Oh wait, there's still one more detail. Fireheart gets banished. Fireheart becomes deputy. Yeah, and that's pretty much the end. We'll be back again once I read the other 3 books in this, and then we get into the other series, 3 at a time. If this one does good, I'll assume I'll do more, because if it does good, there's no reason not to do more, as I always said. Goodbye.